Let's talk more autistic history and the Autism Wars. This is part 22. So we left off in the 90s in the last video with autism organizations being founded by parents in an explosive way, and each of these organizations revolving around a different belief system on autism's cause and what would cure it. And if you look at those different systems, belief systems, you can track them back to the first Autism Wars and the fights between those researchers, Bernard Rimland, Ivar Lovaas, and Bruno Bettelheim. So we are here in the 90s, and we have these different thoughts and belief systems on autism, and each of these organizations believes they are more right, and they are willing to be incredibly vicious to each other in order to be more right. The fights between these groups is astounding, and we will see and hear more about that in future videos. But for right now, we are here, and autistics in this are being either used as a self-narrating zoo exhibit or being rejected completely and being viciously treated as well by all the autism organizations if we don't speak to their tragedy narrative, their goals, and expectations for us. So all of that power and just all of the power and money that they're fighting for, and all the power and money and things that they gain, they turn around and they use that against autistic people in these autism wars. And at some point, you just don't even hear about autistics in the national conversation, in the public conversation, because they have so silenced us from that conversation, while they are simultaneously arguing and fighting us in the background where others aren't seeing it. So autistics who dare to openly advocate for human, civil, and disabled rights were attacked by all sides of the autism community, and parents told autistics we weren't like their child, and we weren't an autism parent, and therefore we couldn't understand. These NT parents insisted that their children had no ability to self-advocate and therefore needed them to be their child's voice. And they believed their parent voice to have more merit in the movement than the voice of any autistic alive. Parents told other parents not to listen to us. That we barely affected autistics were told we shouldn't fight a cure for autism, and that we were being unfair to autistics like their child who couldn't communicate by speaking and or had intellectual disabilities and needed a cure. We were told to quit being selfish about not wanting a cure for autism. So by 2007, the autism wars between parents would make national headlines, but by then autistics had already been muted from the public conversation. These organizations acted like autistic adults didn't exist, or that we didn't exist in the numbers that we do. They certainly didn't want the public to realize the autistic adult population was far larger, far larger than they suggested. If folks knew our actual population size and prevalence rates, it would deflate their autism epidemic and therefore defund their autism agenda. Online, when autistics advocated we don't want a cure, autism parents would dogpile and attempt to bully self-advocates out of the movement. That or devalue and minimize our message. It didn't take long for autistics to realize the only feedback these organizations wanted from us was compliance or silence. Compliance or silence. There wasn't any other option allowed by them, not for us. All right, so in the in the late 90s, before the big breakup between autism organizations, circa 2007 and 2009, Cure Autism Now attempted to bring some unity to these groups for the first time. Cure Autism Now, remember, was founded by John Shaystack and Portia Iverson. So Shaystack recognized the infighting depowered the autism community. It depowered their efforts to introduce autism legislation and get it passed. Right? So if these orgs joined forces, though, they could get far more accomplished, and then they'd all win. This is a quote. People used to think autism was a psychological disorder, said John Shaystack, but it's a medical disorder that will have a medical cure. And the next part of that series I'm going to share with you is the Hollywood hookup. It's going to take us to 1997, and it's going to take us to blockbuster movies and Hollywood and the lights and the spectacles and all of that. But before we get to that part, let's take a peek at this timeline and see what parent-founded autism organizations have been founded since we last took a look in 93. So in 1994, we have the National Alliance for Autism Research, NAAR, being founded by Eric and Karen London, both, of course, parents of an autistic. Their initiatives and projects also included with NAAR, and these might sound familiar: the Autism Tissue Program, ATP, the High Risk Baby Sibling Autism Research Project, NAAR Genome Project, and something called Narrative. So that launched in 94. In 95, we have Bernard Rimland coming out again with another organization called Defeat Autism Now. And DAN was the acronym. People referred to it DAN and CAN. So we got the ands in there, right? So, and just to note that Bernard Rimland was a co-founder of Autism Society of America in 1965. So now in 1995, he's launching Defeat Autism Now. And this was to bring together parents, clinicians, and researchers to explore and establish effective biomedical interventions. Rimland was very outspoken on what he believed to be major causes for autism, which are environmental pollutants, antibiotics, and that, medication that you get in a series when you're born to help you get to adulthood easier. He thought those caused autism. So sometimes this put him at odds with the medical community, and this is where you see these war fronts start up, because Rimland is one front with the all-natural, I don't know how else to say these anti-things, but some very specific ideas about autism being a toxic overload of things. So we see that front. We see the front for genetics and looking for a cure, yes, and then we see the other front where they're going to conform us into behaving and acting like NTs through ABA. So this is it. I'm going to wrap this up here, and we're going to come back and we're going to check out that Hollywood hookup and all the movies and the stars. And goodness, was it Indiana Jones, that one movie that launched some of this? Find out soon. Thank you for joining me for more Autistic History.